Hello and welcome to That Shooting Show. My name's Steve Anderson. I am your humble host. Want to remind you we are a proud service of Walther Firearms, and we're coming to you in April. Today is April the 12th, and that means you've got 5 days to get a free red dot with the purchase of a PDP pistol from Walther. They're going to send you the red dot separately with all the plates and the mounting screws. They're going to get you all squared away. So if you've been wondering about a Walther, you've been wondering about a red dot, this is a great time to get a free red dot with your Walther pistol. Go to waltherarms.com for more information. And as always, the PDP comes with a money-back guarantee, the only one I know of in the industry. And of course, Targets USA, as you know, manufactures the finest steel targetry on the planet. CR Speed manufactures the finest gun handling gadgetry you can wrap around your waist or anywhere else. The mighty AMG-Lab.com Commanderson timer continues to turn heads and blow minds by putting the time right into the tablet. Hunter's HD Gold, as you know, is the only eyewear that I wear. And Outdoor Dynamics remanufactures the finest competition ammunition you can dispense from a Freedom Seed dispenser. And Shooting Sports Innovations is a lot to type because there's a lot to see when you get there. And that's all we have to say about that. Oh, and by the way, all of our guns proudly wear Vortex optics because Vortex is my favorite optics company. As always, you can go over to andersonshooting.com, click on upcoming classes, and see where we're at and what we're up to. If you want us to be somewhere else and up to something else, you just have to let me know. If you want a free class in your area, just let me know. Say, hey, I can get you on a range. Hey, we got USPSA props. Hey, come do a class, and I will do it. And if you want to do mental management, pretty much anytime, you just let me know. We'll make it available to you around your schedule, and we'll allow others to come in as they find that schedule convenient. Doesn't do us a whole lot of good to post a lot of classes for mental management because I don't know when you're available. You let me know when you're available. You let me know when you're tired of struggling. You let me know when you're ready to reach your full potential. We'll set up a class around you and make it available to other folks. Let's see. That's about it. Oh, tonight we're doing our very first mental management free preview. That one is sold out. There is another one coming in May with a couple of spots, and we'll get one set up for June very shortly. 30 minutes of an introduction to mental management, as well as an opportunity for you to ask questions if you have them. Now, speaking of questions, why are you inconsistent? That's a good question. And a second question is, isn't consistency what you really want? I think that's the most common complaint among shooters. I had a good stage and I had a bad stage. I had a good day and I had a bad day. Well, today was my bad day. That means yesterday, well, hang on, I didn't work out. Yesterday... Only Darren Wood in the future can understand that one. He listens it at 1.5 speed, so he got that corrected before I even realized it was a problem. Yesterday was my bad day. Today's going to be my good day. Well, I had a good day yesterday. That means I'm probably not going to do too good today. Consistency. You have to understand consistency is created by the quality of your thoughts and your ability to duplicate them. And at the risk of beating the dead horse with the broken record, I apologize for that, but that's kind of our specialty. What are you thinking and feeling when you perform your best? You have got to know this. And are you able to duplicate this on demand? Had a great chat last night with a young lady going to go to a big air rifle match. She's traveling all the way to Utah for, I believe, her largest air rifle match that she's done so far. And we were talking to her about the mental game a little bit, and she said, I have been struggling to crack the code, but I figured it out in practice. She told me that she imagined that she was an egg, and she could feel the right amount of pressure in every part of her body and her brain, and she decided to shoot bullseyes. Now, I don't know what it means for an air rifle shooter to turn themselves into an egg, and I'm not really suggesting that you try to turn yourself into an egg. But what I'm trying to let you know is she figured out what she's thinking and feeling when she performs her best, and she's figured out how to duplicate it. If you think it's an egg, that'll work extra good, and that will provide exceptional results, and you probably won't crack under pressure. And I don't have any more yolks about eggs. Or do I? Maybe later. You must know what mental conditions provide your best performance. If you don't know this, you will not be able to duplicate it. You know when you shoot your worst. Well, I always take them in their classifier. I get down to that qualifier and I always bust a hostage. Okay, well, that's not something we need to know. What do you know about when you do your best? And if you'll take a minute and write these things down, you'll be in much better shape and have much greater ability to duplicate these conditions. I would venture a guess that it includes a subconscious stage plan and minimal conscious thought. I shoot my best when I'm not thinking. That's great. Typically, when somebody tells me about the best stage they ever shot, they say, man, I knew that stage inside and out. I knew that I could make every single shot. I was so ready to go. Okay, well, that sounds like strategy, skill, and confidence to me. But you got to be careful thinking about nothing, because it's not creatable, it's not inducible, on demand, under pressure. So if thinking about nothing is not possible for some reason, you got to find something else to think about. And I would say that you probably should do that ahead of time, meaning if thinking about nothing is working, let's convert that into thinking about something so that when you do feel pressure, you won't have an issue not being able to think about nothing. That can be a big problem. We call that unconscious competent. That's where somebody can perform really well under pressure, but they don't know how they do it. They can think about nothing when they're not feeling pressure, but they don't know how they do it. You've got to know how to do it so you can do it again. Thinking about the results during the competition will cause the conscious mind to overtry or undertry. This ironically denies access to subconscious skill and short circuits all your training. So if you start thinking about results, all the training you have done will not be available to you, because it's not in your conscious mind. It's in your subconscious mind. Thinking about results combined with a low level of confidence will always cause the conscious mind to wake up and overtry. This will never be your best performance. Undertrying is done out of caution or concern or fear of making a mistake. That's a great way to come in third or fourth in your class. Overtrying is caused by thinking that the result won't be good enough. That's a great way to come in DFL, dead last. Okay, overtrying is way worse than undertrying, but neither one of them will provide consistency. When you're enjoying consistency, please write something down. Now, inconsistent thinking will always cause inconsistent shooting. Here's an example. Well, here's a speed stage. And they even call them that in USPSA. Speed shoot. Here's speed shoot. Just got to let it rip. Well, okay, but somebody who has a similar level of skill with just a little bit better points is going to, he's going to beat you. Yes, here's an accuracy stage. It's a low hit factor. Well, so that could change strategy a little bit. A low hit factor stage means makeups are a little bit more valuable. It means points are a little bit more important. From a strategy perspective, I would support that. But it doesn't really change your fundamental job. Well, I'm going to put the hammer down. I'm trailing third place. I could probably catch and put the hammer down. Well, that sounds like overtrying. Well, let's see. I overtried and rush tried, hurry, had a bunch of mics. Now I'm going to slow down and get my hits. And most people will change between putting the hammer down and slowing down to get their hits throughout their entire career. They'll speed up, they'll slow down. Every once in a while, they'll luck into, and it truly is luck, they'll luck into a great performance, but they won't know how they did it, so they won't be able to do it again. And the worst thing they'll do is they'll trivialize it, marginalize it, push away from their self-image by saying, well, even a blind acorn finds a squirrel every once in a while. Well, if you're calling yourself a blind acorn. Let's try that again. Well, even a blind squirrel finds an acorn every once in a while. Okay, well, if you're calling yourself a blind squirrel, that means that you are pushing that result away, making that result less likely, making that less a part of who you are. This here's a classifier. I got to swing for the fences if I want to class up. Well, the classifier is going to reward a regular pattern of good shooting above, well, let's rephrase that. Classing up is going to reward a consistent pattern of shooting at a higher skill level than you're currently classified at. A consistent level of shooting at a higher level than you're currently classified at. Consistency. Oh, I got a major match coming. Oh, I got to try really hard. Well, over trying, under trying will never be your best performance. Now, the good news is consistent thinking will create consistent shooting. Doing the same things in the same order has to provide a consistent result. How can it do anything else? I had somebody send me an article about Michael Phelps, famous pot-smoking swimmer. And what it talked about was he structures his competition day in the exact same way every time. And this creates what his coach calls little victories, right? When we do things the same way every single time, these are small victories. Well, experiencing these small victories will cause you to expect to be victorious throughout your entire day. What you're doing is you're imprinting to your self-image that it's normal to have victory. Small victories leading up to big victories. I'll have to read that one again, but that's pretty cool. So if you're type A, and I don't know if most shooters are type A, but certainly many of them are. So I wanted to make sure that I understood type A really well, so I looked it up. So here's some type A traits. Self-control. Now this is from a website. And the type A people that I've met do have a good ability to control themselves inside of a singular focus. If they know what one thing is important and they know what to do, that's usually going to provide a good result for type A. But if there's multiple objectives, they lose their ability to self-control because they don't know what's important. Now, another great thing about type A I learned from this website is they have a strong motivation to achieve results. That's great. That'll result in the rage to master. The rage to master is present whenever somebody will do anything to get to master grandmaster. They'll do anything to achieve their goal, and I love that. So people that have the rage to master can normally make a lot of mistakes and still be successful. But if we can eliminate or reduce the old mistakes that keep reoccurring, we can get there a whole lot faster. Competitiveness. No kidding. So this is great. Competitiveness is great if it causes type A to formulate a strategy to make the result they want more likely. That's wonderful. Multitasking skills. I don't believe this one for a second. Multitasking is the biggest load of malarkey in the junkyard of loads of malarkey. It's a trap. Only subconscious skills can be multitasked. If something requires conscious thought, it cannot be multitasked. This is why you can't get a good stage plan while you're goofing off with your buddies. They both require the conscious mind. So anytime you start thinking about multitasking, ask yourself, does this require conscious thought? If so, it cannot be multitasked. Walking and chewing gum do not require the conscious mind. Those can be multitasked. Doing your taxes and feeding your alligators, those both require conscious thought. Now, if you can feed your alligators subconsciously, you might be able to do your taxes at the same time, but you might lose an arm and a leg in your taxes. Alligator joke. Arm and a leg. Chronic competitiveness. I'm not really sure what they mean by chronic. I suppose it would mean habitual. So the problem with competitiveness is without a strategy, it'll result in overtrying. You can't put enough effort on a skill to get the result that you want. But what you can do is have confidence in the result, which will allow the skill to come out as you've trained it. It's very counterintuitive for a lot of people. The next thing we learned about type A personality is they tend to be impatient. Boy, I have seen this a number of times. This is very damaging to the self-image if success or improvement is not acknowledged. It's okay to be impatient, but there's some number of reps you're going to have to do to make a new skill or a change skill subconscious. Nothing you can do to speed that up. And type A tends to be pretty impatient. They want it now. Aggression. Boy, I tell you what, you find a shooter that tends to throw their magazines into the field, find a shooter that rage quits, they're always going to be type A because they can have aggression. Aggression is not a useful emotion unless it causes a formulation of strategy. We'll get to that in a minute. Hostility. We've seen type A people be hostile primarily towards themselves. If you're type A, you've got to do something for me right now. You've got to quit talking to yourself harsher than you would a shooter you're trying to help. If you ever talk to yourself harsher than a shooter you're trying to help, you are damaging your self-image. And aren't you a shooter that you're trying to help? Yeah, okay. Here's the bottom line on type A. Multiple objectives will always cause struggle and ultimately some form of failure or perceived failure. Type A cannot accomplish 6 objectives at once, but they try to because of all these traits, right? What we do find about type A is that if they can get their objectives down to 1, they do not know how to fail. So if you're type A and you know you're type A, reduce the number of objectives down to 1, or at least the smallest number of objectives you can get. So when you're type A, the lower the number of objectives, the more chance you have of being successful. You get that sucker down to 1 and success is guaranteed if you're type A. Singular focus will always provide success. Now, one thing I've learned about type A is that when they decide to be successful, they are always successful. And I can tell when we're in the live fire classes, I can tell when a shooter's getting ready to get it right by the way they hold their body. And if you're an RO, you might start paying attention to this. Experienced ROs can usually tell by the way the shooter holds themselves, carries themselves, presents themselves, what's getting ready to happen. And I can spot it a mile away in classes. If somebody's struggling on something and they decide to be successful, this causes a reformulation of strategy, by the way. They hold themselves a little bit differently. And I always know they're getting ready to get it right when I see them stand a certain way because they've decided to be successful. Type A does this all the time. And if you're type A, think about times you've tried to do something versus times you've decided to be successful. This obviously benefits from confidence. And this is one area where the aggression of type A can be a little bit helpful. When type A decides to be successful, the aggression helps them out. But if they're trying to do something and they don't know if they're going to be successful, the aggression causes problems. Gosh, it's almost like confidence is at least 30% of performance. Type A, type B, type O negative, type everyone. And decided to be successful works extremely well within skill and strategy. That was the other thing that my air rifle shooter told me last night when I was talking to her. She decided to be successful. She knows what that means. She knows what to do. She knows what it looks like. She knows what it feels like. And I want to tell you a story about what happened to me yesterday on the subject of deciding to be successful. So we had a range day on Monday. I had a private shooter, well, not a private, but I had a shooter come out to the range here in Newark, Ohio for a private session, which, by the way, you can do if you're anywhere in Ohio. You can come out to the ranch here in Newark, out by the big Longaberger basket, and we can have the best time. You basically get in these one-day sessions, you get whatever you need from every drill or exercise I've ever invented or ever used. You get whatever you need out of all that as many times as you need it. And with just one shooter, we can make sure you get exactly what you need. And we had one of those. And it started out pretty chilly. It was in the high 30s, low 40s, so I had my winter coat on. Well, as we packed up for the day, I decided to take, oh, and by the way, I put my keys in my winter coat, right? We got done packing up for the day, and I decided to save a trip with the vehicle up from the range. I decided to put my winter coat inside the target box. And then I decided to put the target box inside the garage, and then I decided to lock the garage. And so the following day, Mrs. Anderson says, hey, can you go to the grocery store, get these things, get those things? I said, sure, no problem. I go looking for my keys, and then I remembered my keys are in my jacket, and my jacket is in the garage, and the garage is locked, and the key to the lock is inside the jacket. Not a problem. I can get these things out of there. First try was a coat hanger. Take coat hanger, bend it, work it through the crack in the door, not quite enough to get in there. Okay, no problem. Come back in. I get the roller mop, a little squeegee roller mop, I grabbed that. I figured, well, if I can jimmy this in there and hook the mop inside the box. The box is closed with the 4 flaps folded. Figured I could hook that mop into the corner and pull it out. That didn't work. And then I had this weird memory of a Brady Bunch show that I saw in which the Brady family they were in this old West town and some huckster kidnapped him and locked him up in the jail cell. And the Brady family, they tied their socks together and threw the socks to catch the belt and get the key and let themselves out. And I thought, what would the Brady Bunch do? Well, the Brady Bunch for sure wouldn't give up. Marsha would not give up. So I thought, okay, coat hanger's my best chance. What if I get 2 of them, make it a little longer? That's how I'm going to do it. I decided to be successful. I made the conscious decision to be successful. Took 2 coat hangers, taped them together with packing tape. Had to redo that a couple of times because they were slipping and sliding back and forth. Threw that thing in there like a true Brady Buncher, hooked the corner of that box, pulled it off onto its side. I thought, man, this is great. I'm going to get these keys. I'm going to be victorious. I am going to be successful. Got the box over on its side, got it jimmied around, got it flattened over, reached my hand through there. On the YouTube, you can see where I cut my arm. I cut my arm there going through the door. Jammed my arm and I could feel the flap with my knuckles, but I couldn't quite get a hold of it. So I thought, I will get these keys out of here. I will do this. I will be successful. It caused me to reformulate my strategy. All I have to do is get my arm in there a little bit further and I can get that jacket and get those keys and be on my way. Because I decided to be successful. My first 2 attempts, I was just trying stuff. Coat hanger, mop. Maybe we can get it, maybe we can't. And then I realized, you know what? The quality of the dinner depends on my ability because I got to get these things from the grocery store. I must be successful. Now, you may think that's just a funny story about stuff I get myself into, locking my keys in the garage, and it is. But what I want to illustrate is the power of deciding to be successful. And if you can go back and look at other times when you've been successful, what have you done? When you've been successful, you have the correct combination of strategy, skill, and confidence. Strategy provided by the conscious mind, skill provided by training, and confidence coming from the self-image. That's when you do your best. And those of you that have had middle management know we call that the triad state. And that's when good performance seems easy. It feels effortless. That's when you have those slow motion runs that score really well. The RO says, wow, you did that in 8 seconds. You're like, 8 seconds? I figured it was 80 seconds. But because you knew what to think about and you had sufficient skill for the task and you believed you'd be successful, or you weren't worried about the results, which is pretty close, and you knew the stage inside and out, that's when you had your best performance. So let's test your last competition experience. Number 1, can you remember every target from every stage of your last match? If you cannot remember every target from every stage of your last match, you didn't know those stages well enough. It's as simple as that. I don't care if it's 24 stages. You should be able to remember every target from every stage. If you can't do that, you didn't know them well enough. Do you know what you were thinking prior to and during your best stages? If you go back and look at your match, you had a couple of good ones, you had a couple of so-so, and you had a couple of stinkers. Think about the good ones. What were you thinking before those stages? What were you thinking during those stages? You must know this. And if you made a mistake, was it mental or was it technical? Now, most mistakes are technical mistakes caused by a mental error. That's the vast majority. The only mistake that is truly technical, let me see if I can think of one. Poor sight picture, 100% mental. Poor trigger pull, that could be a skill, right? So different levels of trigger pull is a skill that some people may not have, but I would suggest that that's normally exacerbated by being in a hurry. So we'll call that one semi-technical. Yeah, they're all mental. Every mistake you make is going to be mental in its basis, right? Unless there's just something that you absolutely cannot do. If you've never gone prone before, for example, and you just don't know how to do it, that'd be a technical mistake. But the only true technical mistake would be something that you've literally never done before. Not very common. So if your mistakes were mental, they were caused by a poor mindset. They were caused by incorrect thinking before or during the stage, or incorrect thinking after the last stage. It's one of the things we talk about in mental management is what you think about after stage one will set the tone for the entire match. What you think about before stage one only affects stage one. What you think about after stage one will affect 2, 3, 4, and 5, and 6, and potentially your entire career. So my question to you is, how many times are you willing to make the same mistake without learning from it? Reaching your potential is about making every new mistake you can possibly make and learn from it. But if you keep making the same mistakes over and over and over again, you're not learning and you're not reaching your potential. Why? Iron sight shooters, how many times do you have to learn that a poor sight picture produces a poor shot? Dot shooters, how about this one? If your dot isn't on the target when the gun goes off, it's not going to be a hit. So why are you standing there wondering? Right? If you're shooting at steel and you don't see the dot lift off that steel target, it's probably not going to be a hit. Standing there and watching, waiting for it to fall isn't going to magically knock it over. The ding fairy is a cruel, heartless bitch. She is not going to give you a hit if the dot didn't leave the target when the gun went off. You learn to see that? Boy, it puts you in control. So, all right, hope you enjoyed today's program on consistency. I've got to get to an insider call and a mental management class today. Let's see. Yeah, my insiders are crushing it. Like I've told you before, my insiders, we have 2 calls. I'm doing everything you told me to do, and I'm crushing it. Or I'm not doing the things you told me to do, and I'm struggling. Please tell me what to do again. Those are the 2 kinds of calls we have. So I'm not really sure. Today's I think my first time talking to this guy. So we'll see which category he falls into. I would recommend you fall into the category of, hey, I'm doing everything you told me to do, and I'm crushing it. And by the way, tomorrow, Thursday, April the 13th, we've got the first installment of C to G. So we've got a C-class limited shooter and a Grandmaster limited shooter, and we're going to do a little roundtable with the 2 of those. It's going to be super, super exciting. So make sure you tune in tomorrow for the first episode of C2G. And until that time, I want you to be like me, do what I do, say it with me. 1, 2, 3, get to work.